month by month, explain the changes that were going to occur in her body, as well as clearly summarize the stage of development that the baby was at on a month-to-month basis. So I hope when I'm done today, you'll have a better understanding of the different stages that you need to go through in order to rent an apartment in Boston, what to watch out for, and what to be aware of. After graduating from Syracuse in 1988, which seems to be getting farther and farther away from me, I immediately started working at Beacon Realty Properties in Boston, a company that my dad started in 1959. I actually rented my first apartment to someone when I was 12 years old, and I figure I've signed over 6,000 leases in the city of Boston. All right, so let's get started. So when you go out looking for an apartment in Boston, there are two types of people that you're gonna meet. The real estate broker makes his living by acting as an intermediary between the prospective tenant and the landlord. Now, the first time that you sit down with that agent, they should make you sign a fee agreement. And that fee agreement is going to explain what their compensation is, provided they're successful in finding you an apartment. Now, the broker fee can range anywhere from a half month's rent to a full month's rent, whatever you agree upon. Be careful to read anything that the agent, the landlord, or the management company provides you, and make sure you understand what you're signing before you sign it. There are some fee agreements that state that the agent is entitled to their fee if you're accepted by the owner or the management company. You don't want to sign that form. You want to sign the fee agreement that says that the compensation due to the agent is only paid after you sign the contract, not before. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to read the documents before you sign. It's going to avoid a lot of problems and a lot of issues down the road. If you find a landlord to deal with directly, it's illegal for that person to charge you that broker fee. So for that reason, a lot of people spend a little more time trying to find the owner directly as opposed to using the middleman. It's a little more work, it's a little more effort, but saving up to a month's rent is certainly excellent motivation for you. People also like dealing directly with the person who owns the property, because once that broker has collected their commission, human nature says that if there's a problem during your tenancy, the broker is just going to refer you back to the owner directly anyways. So for that reason, if you meet the owner first, you get a good understanding of what their expectations are. You understand if you kind of vibe with them, and you get to speak with them directly. And I think it's a good way to start off a potential tenancy. So now you found an apartment that's in the location that you want, and the condition that you want, and the price is right. So now what? The broker or owner will ask you to fill out an application. The application is going to provide the owner of the property with a brief history about you. Try to fill it out completely. If you're out looking for apartments, you should definitely bring a driver's license with you or a passport, and also your acceptance letter from BU Medical, or if you're a current student there and you have your ID, that's great also. For foreign students, it's pretty common for owners to ask for a copy of your passport, your visa, and your I-20 as well, in addition to a driver's license or an acceptance letter. Overall, the rental market in Boston remains highly competitive, with strong demand and limited inventory driving up costs and prices. Don't go into the process, however, feeling desperate. That's a huge mistake. But take time to gather as much information as you can about neighborhoods, potential roommates, pricing, what you can afford, and try to find as many options that check off the boxes that are important to you. You'll be able to move forward feeling like you've made a really good decision. And again, you're avoiding potential problems down the road. As we get closer to September 1st, people are renting the best units available, and the longer you wait, the less choice you're going to have. I was mentioning to Stephanie before the program began, March is really a great month to kind of gather all that information, do that research now, so you can really sort of be super laser focused on what you're looking for. So when you do start your search, you can sort of eliminate all the riffraff and things that aren't important to you and focus on the few apartments that do check off those boxes. The lease that you sign is a binding agreement between you and the landlord. It's a legal document, so know what you're signing and make sure you're comfortable doing so and can comply with the agreement. If you have any questions, if you know already, before you sign that there's going to be an issue on the back end, that you might not be able to fulfill the full term of the lease, that's the time to bring up that question, not after you've signed the contract. You should be very comfortable before you sign the contract and have all your questions answered, excuse me. Again, it's just, you're avoiding conflict and problems down the road. My office uses a lease from the Rental Housing Association. It looks like this. It has their logo up in the top corner. It's the local apartment association in Boston. All the paperwork has their logo on it. It's sort of the gold standard in the city. And, every lease can be different, but if you see that it's coming from the Greater Boston Real Estate Board or the Rental Housing Association, you know that you're off to a good start. If you're going to sign a lease with someone that you're meeting for the first time, you have to realize that both people are going to be 100% responsible for the full performance of the lease. That's really important. You want to make sure you know who you're going to be living with and are comfortable with that person and or his parents, their parents, if they're going to be co-signing, and that they're going to be able to fulfill their obligations. So let's just take, for example, Stephanie and Catherine decide to move into a 2-bedroom apartment together, and they're going to split that rent of $3,600 a month. And Catherine pays her rent on the first day of every month. She's a wonderful tenant. But Stephanie is dragging her feet. She's not paying her bills. What happens? Unfortunately, they're both responsible. So Catherine's going to be responsible for Stephanie, like Stephanie's responsible for Catherine. So, again, having that conversation, and sometimes they're really tough conversations, but have those conversations before you start the process and make sure you're on the same page. When you're reading through your lease, you want to make sure that it clearly states the exact address of the apartment that you're renting. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer, but sometimes you'll talk and you'll go out with agents and you could see 3, 4, or 5 apartments. So if you say to them, we want to rent the third one, your recollection of the third one and their recollection of the third one might be very different. So it's good to take notes. And if you want to rent apartment 6B, you want to make sure that on the lease it says that you're renting apartment 6B. You need the name and address of the landlord on the contract, because you need to know who to reach out to if there's any issues or problems. It has to clearly state the term of the lease, what is the rent, and when is it due, who to contact for maintenance. You should ask if there's a 24-hour emergency number if you truly have an emergency in the middle of the night. What utilities are included with the rent and what you'll be responsible for. Sometimes I I bash the agents and the brokers a little too much. But they are dealing with a lot of different owners, a lot of different buildings. So sometimes they do get a little confused. You want to make sure that if they tell you that the rent includes heat and hot water, that in the lease, it clearly states that the rent includes heat and hot water. You want to look for any discrepancies. It's not because they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Sometimes it's just a mistake, or sometimes they get confused with the buildings that they're showing. In order to avoid other problems during the lease term, you want to make sure you know what the policy is on painting inside the apartment. If the lease says you can't paint, please don't paint. Can you hang pictures on the walls? Is parking included with the rent, or is there a fee? Can you get off-street parking? If you're planning to bring a car to Boston, which I would highly recommend that you don't bring a car to Boston, public transportation in the city is excellent. Sometimes, figuring out what you're going to do with your car is more difficult than finding an apartment in the city. So you've got to know what you're going to do with your vehicle. Are pets allowed in the apartment? When can the landlord enter the apartment, either for showings or just checking in to see any preventive maintenance they want to do, leaks, drips, changing smoke detector batteries? What kind of notice are they going to be giving you? What happens if you want to add an additional person onto the lease? All of these questions either should be answered in the documents or, again, discussed before signing the contract. Are you allowed to sublet the apartment? If you know that you're not going to be here in the summer of 2026, or a different time during the lease term, what's the sublet process? And are they going to be able to help you find a replacement? How do you go about doing it? It's common in Boston to collect up to 3 months rent, either when you sign the lease or before you move in, depending on the owner's requirements. So I just want to go through those 3 months with you now. The first month's rent is obviously used to cover the rent for the first month of the lease. That's super easy. A landlord can collect up to, but no more than, a sum equal to 1 month's rent to be used as a security deposit. So going back to Stephanie and Catherine's apartment, they're going to put down 1 month's rent, $3,600 for that beautiful 2-bedroom apartment when they sign the lease, and then they're going to give the owner a $3,600 security deposit. And when they give them that security deposit, and in the lease documents, the owner has to provide Stephanie and Catherine with 2 specific forms. One is the apartment condition statement, and that apartment condition statement lists the condition of the apartment. So we typically will write down that the unit is in good condition. By law, Stephanie and Catherine have 15 days after they move into the apartment to notify us of any problems, anything that they don't want to be responsible for. So, sometimes it's a little intimidating. Sometimes it's a little awkward if you're out looking at apartments and, you're there, the agent's there, your parents might be with you, the current tenants might be in the apartment. So you don't really get a great look. There are pictures on the walls and you don't notice everything. But once you move into the apartment should be cleaned, it should be in great condition, and then you can really get a good look of the apartment. So if you see a cracked window, a hole in the wall, scratches on the floor, a stain on carpeting, you've got those 15 days to notify the owner in writing with photos, just to document everything of exactly what you're moved into. And then that way, hopefully they'll do the repairs and maintenance, but you won't be held responsible for any damage when the lease is over. The other paperwork that they're supposed to give you is the rent and security deposit receipt, which is clearly going to state when you collect a security deposit, it needs to be put into an escrow account, and they have to give you the name of the bank, the address of the bank, and also the account number where that security deposit is being held. The tenant is entitled to collect interest up to 5% if that security deposit is held for 1 year or longer. Okay? And the final month that you're going to be asked to pay is the last month's rent. Unlike the security deposit, last month's rent does not have to be held in escrow. However, you are entitled to collect interest for the period that they hold that last month's rent. So if you're only there for 9 months, unlike the security deposit that has to be held for a year, you're entitled to collect interest on 9 months worth of rent. And the reason why they want that security deposit put into escrow is because in theory, it's all supposed to be going back to you. So they don't want any commingling. They don't want the landlord to spend the money and then not have the money available to you when it should be coming back within 30 days of the lease termination. So it has to be put in escrow. You should receive also the tenant law notification. Those are federal paperwork that anyone in the United States that either rents or buys a home, you have to sign off on lead law information. 3 other addendums that we include. There's a no smoking addendum. There's a mold addendum, not saying that there's mold in the unit, but how to prevent mold from growing in the unit, and also an insect infestation addendum, which sounds a lot worse than what it is. But again, it talks about taking out your trash, keeping your place clean, notifying either the property manager or the owner about any bugs or any issues that you're having in the unit sooner rather than later. Definitely don't wait if you see something like that. Pet deposits are not allowed and are illegal in the state. So if anyone wants to collect extra deposits from you, that is not allowed. You'll find out a lot about your potential landlord when you read their lease. It's important that you understand what you're signing, that you agree to the lease terms with all of its rules and regulations. Now, I began this afternoon telling you about the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. So I have to obviously tell you what happened at the end. My son, who's turning 30 this month, it's hard to believe. So we went to the hospital. I saw the valet in front of the Brigham and Women's Hospital in the turnaround, and I got out of the car and I instinctively told the valet that my wife was in labor and told him how far apart our contractions were. And he looked at me and he gave me excellent advice. And it's the same advice that I'm going to give to you. He said, sir, he goes, calm down, relax, walk through those doors, and someone will help you. And honestly, when you're looking for an apartment in Boston, the best advice that I can give you is to, relax, breathe, take it all in. A lot of people in Boston have been dealing with students for many, many years. Everyone seems to find the housing that they're looking for. You just need to find people, companies, buildings that you feel comfortable with, agents that you feel comfortable with, owners that want to help you, people that you want to live with for the year, and just go for it. You just be happy when you're going through the process. Like I said before, don't feel desperate. That's not a good way to look for a place. And if you have any questions, the people that organize the fair today, or the talk today, are there to help you. And you can always talk to them, ask them questions, ask them if things sound right, and they'll help. They're a great office at BU Medical. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. So if you have any questions, I haven't seen any in the chat, but feel free to bring them up so we can answer them live when we have Steve. Well, we have Steve here. Um, I've been playing some slides in the background. Those are our off-campus housing resources that you can take a look through. We have some slides on our website. We also have a housing guide too to help navigate this search for you guys. It's all anonymous survey from current students that we've sent out, and we compile into a sheet, a PDF for our students. So you can look at the neighborhoods that students are renting from. You can look at the um, the actual reviews of their own apartment building. So take a look on that too as well. But we have a great resources on our website. So make sure you look at those. We have a first question. Um, so I'm interested in finding a landlord to deal with directly to save costs. How do you suggest about going about this? So I'll let you answer, Steve.
I was getting all wound up, Stephanie. I know that BU partners with off-campus apartments, and those are people who are vetted through the school and through a third party. That's a great website. I don't know if incoming students have access to that site
You do.
now. They
Mhm.
do. All right. So that is a great place to look. It's broken down between owners and agents, and you're dealing with people that are familiar to the school and to the personnel, versus finding someone randomly on a Craigslist or online where you might not know much about their background.
And I know we have Steve here. BU cannot recommend one real estate agent over another. They do have resources on the off-campus website, so you can take a look too on any of the realtors that have worked with Boston University. But we're not endorsing Steve, but we're letting you know he's a resource out there. And then there's other resources too on our website. Um, So we have another question about what are common neighborhoods for the medical campus. So that I just get this going. A lot of our students are coming from mostly from the by the Charles River campus. So we have a lot of students coming from Alston, Brighton areas, and then they usually take the shuttle over to the medical campus. So that's commonly where most of our students are coming from. But we do have students coming from all around the area. We have students from Quincy, from Dorchester area, from Somerville, just around the pockets of Boston. The South End is definitely the most expensive area to live. So usually our students aren't coming exactly from that area just because of the price. But we have most of our students are going to be coming from the Alston Brighton area just from the past reviews that we've seen. And then we had a question on how much are the realtor fees on average? So Steve can help answer this, but it's usually typically about a month of whatever the rent is. Uh,
It's typically a month. I mean, you can try to negotiate it down. It depends on current rental conditions as well. Sometimes if the market isn't great, the owners will pay half, and then the tenants will pay half. But the fact right now that we're in March, that it's been a pretty strong market right now. These schools seem to be accepting more and more students. I would say that if you're plan on working with an agent, you're going to be paying a full month commission.
yeah. And we're Massachusetts is one of I think two of the U.S. states that require broker fees. But it's usually a month of rent. So, um, and then we got another question. Some places require an application process. When would be the perfect time for them to apply?
So, again, I think once you're ready and once you found an apartment that checks off those boxes that are important to you, you put in your application. I think, just to put in applications for the sake of putting in applications is a waste of a lot of people's time and efforts. But you should flex and you should sort of flex your muscles. People love medical students. You're very desirable. You're not home very often. You work hard, and for the most part, you're great tenants. So sometimes that will put you up on top of the list if it comes down to deciding between an undergrad and a grad student. So I wouldn't be afraid to tell people, what you're doing when you're applying, even though they'll see it on your application, but calling it to their attention can only help you along the way.
Excellent. We had another question. We're on the presentation and the slides. So we have the slides available. They're all from our screenshots of our website that we have and our links that we have available. But we'll also post the recording on the website. So we'll have that out there for you. That'll be posted very soon. So. Any more questions for Steve? So that's a great question. Someone asked, would it be possible to, instead of a 12-month lease, to do a 24-month lease?
I've never heard of one. They're definitely not popular. You might get some buildings that would allow you to do it, but don't forget if you're signing a 24-month lease, you're also committing to this for 24 months, and sometimes that can be a lot to commit to, whether you have roommates or things happen in life and things change. So it's a long time to commit for an apartment. Typically people obviously want to keep their apartments rented. So if you sign a place for a year and you're happy and they're happy, it should not be an issue to renew a contract.
And then we also got a question. How far out from a desired move-in date would you suggest to start looking for an apartment?
Well, it depends on the move-in date. There are a lot of listings that are coming on the market now for September. It's pretty common in March, April for those apartments to start popping up. If you're looking for summer move-ins, those will sometimes come about 60 days, 60 to 75 days before the start date.
And we do have some short-term housing options too on our website too. If you needed to move in earlier than initial lease, we have some options on our website. And then someone asked what would be the better area for an SBH student to live in. We can't, well, we're not able to really recommend a place over another, but really find the best fit for you. We have majority of our students are coming from the by Alston, Brighton area. So that's where we got most of our students. A lot of the SBH students too are coming from that area. It's pretty quick. We do have a shuttle that runs from that area, Alston, Brighton, over to our campus. So it's very popular, but we do have students coming from all different areas around the city. Then we had another question. How easy possible is it for a disabled student to get a wheelchair accessible apartment in Boston?
I think it is really going to depend on the building and what you need. Um, as far as access. So I think again, when you're out looking, you should be talking either to your agent, to the broker, to the property management company, to the owner, telling them what you need, and trying to get that matched up for you.
Excellent. And then we had a question, when you talked about the pet fees, they asked if the pet fees were legal. You had mentioned deposits are not. Can you explain what that difference is?
Sure. So the state is very concerned that landlords are going to try to increase security deposit. So if you remember, I said that the landlord can only accept a security deposit, which is equal to a month's rent. So they don't want the owner to turn around and say, okay, and if you want a cat, you have to give us another $500 as a deposit. So you can't accept any more deposit. Monthly pet fees are illegal. Honestly, they'd be better off just to incorporate it into the monthly rent and just call it a day. That way, there's no discrepancy at all. But monthly pet fees are okay, but the deposits are not.
Do we have any other questions for Steve? So on my screen right now, I have our BU's off-campus website. Steve had mentioned that. So is a search for housing on there. There's also real estate agents that have worked with BU. There's also a great roommate search to take a look at. As your students, you want to make sure you're trying to keep your costs low when you're renting. So there is a roommate search on that profile that you can either put your own profile or you can see if you can match with another roommate on the site. And that is not limited to Boston University students. So other students around the area can post their profile to help you find more accessible roommates. So there's Boston College students, there's some Northeastern students. There's a big pool. We're in such a hub of education. So certainly take a look on there. I can help you find a roommate in the area to keep your costs low. Any more questions for the chat? Yes. Oh, we got some. We have a student, a dental student. They were looking to apply for, I believe it's on-campus housing. There is an application for on-campus housing. You can certainly apply. There's no housing on the medical campus that would be open, but you can certainly apply for on-campus housing. It's right on the graduate housing website. You can take a review of the application and put one in as soon as possible. I do want to remind you there is quite an extensive a list of students that are applying for limited housing. So there you could be put on a wait list. Jonathan has put the link in the chat for the grad housing website. So you can apply right on there, but it is very competitive. We do want to remind you of that as you put your application in. So definitely be aware of that. And if you end up on a wait list, certainly look for some off-campus options available through the other off-campus website or work with a real estate agent. Yes. How many spots available for on-campus housing? I don't know the number on the top of my head, but it's very limited for the amount of applications that we do get. They have our the information is listed on the grad housing website. So you can take a look at what the housing options are available, but it is very competitive. I do want to remind everyone. Like the questions are slowing down in the chat, but if you have any questions, feel free to let us know so we can get those answered live. Someone asked if parents can stay with them when they're on campus. Um, you have to, they can come visit for a short amount of time. You'd have to check with grad housing if it's a longer amount of stay. Any more questions you guys have? All right. So if you guys don't have anything else, I just wanted to thank you all for your time today. Thank you to Steve for your presentation. We have Steve's information on one of our slides we can send out to all. We'll also send out the rest of the slides so you guys have them, so you have all the access to what we talked about today. So I want to thank everyone for your time. And if you have any questions, you can contact our office, Student Financial Services, through our email, or you can give us a call. But we're happy to help you through the process. I do want to remind you we have May 13th, 12 to 1:30. We do have our off-campus housing fair. So you can meet with local real estate agents, you can meet with local property managers, and there's a chat ongoing throughout the hour and a half. So you have any more questions, you can feel free to attend that as well as I'll help you meet with some local people in Boston. So thank you again, and thank you, Steve, for your time today.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.